Good evening. This is David and Gene and Roger, a Siskel and Ebert podcast. I am David Anderson. I am here as always with Mr. David Lawler. How are you doing?
Yo, what up, bitch?
I am up and I am ready.
All right.
We're talking about Siskel and Ebert, and we're talking about their 1982 episode of At the
Sneak
Movie.
Previews.
Of Sneak Previews, you're right.
Yeah.
Sneak Previews, you're right. Yes, an early cut, and they're going to talk about the film Diner. See, Chan is missing. What's the other one they're talking about?
Something about 8 minutes to midnight.
8 minutes to midnight, and then they're going to cap off with the science fiction classic Blade Runner. And then at the end of this episode, we're going to talk about the sequel, Blade Runner 2049.
All right, this is a special double-length episode.
This is a special episode. We're also going to squeeze in their review of the director's cut that came out about 10 years later.
We start off with Diner. 1982 American comedy drama film written and directed by Barry Levinson. His first movie over a long and distinguished career, and the first of 4 movies that he made that were set in Baltimore, his hometown, during the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Our first film, I think, is one of the year's best. A portrait of a bunch of young men in Baltimore in 1959, growing up or failing to grow up as life would have it. And virtually every night of the week, these young men congregate at the neighborhood diner just to hang out.
You know you
just let it go.
You know he wants
You're
it.
annoying. Yes,
I'm annoying. I'm trying to eat a meal by
If
myself.
you want to give him the sandwich, give him the sandwich. If you don't want to give him the sandwich, don't.
I don't
want
wanna give him the- if
Well,
you-
then just eat the sandwich
Then
and shut
don't.
up.
Well, look at his
I
eyes.
ask one simple question, you get it. You know what your problem is? You don't chew your food. That's why you get so irritable. It lumps. You have like roast beef in your heart. It just stays there.
Oh, Modell, you're really getting me mad now. My blood is boiling.
See, I don't like it.
I'll take the sandwich.
No,
Okay,
don't.
Fine, I'll take the sandwich.
See what you do.
What are you blaming me? You took the sandwich. I'm sitting, I'm having a cup
You
of
want
coffee.
this?
That's it.
No.
want this?
No. I don't want it.
Fine, I do.
I can't believe you're eating this. You know, you two play against me. That's what the problem is.
And here you have an amazing cast. This is a cast of actors who would go on to do incredibly successful things and have very successful careers, and they're all in this movie.
Yeah.
Even like the lesser known of them became famous. Tim Daly was the one that everyone said, oh, well, it had Steve Guttenberg, it had Daniel Stern, it had Kevin Bacon, and it had Paul Reiser, and then it had this other guy, Tim Daly. I don't know who he was, but he wound up becoming very popular on the show Wings.
Yeah, Tim Daly of Wings and the short-lived fugitive TV series that my mom loved.
And he was the brother of Tyne Daly from Cagney and Lacey.
Yes.
And the son of James Daly, the actor. So you got like these friends who all hang out and they commiserate and they have these conversations in a diner, in a very popular diner. Their late night hangout called the Hilltop Diner in Baltimore. And they're all young men. And some of them are married and some of them have girlfriends and some of them have strange relationships. And that's one of the things that Siskel and Ebert comment on is the relationships between men and women, and how some people grow to be more mature as others become more immature. And I think we know people like that, both of us in our lives.
Oh, we were having a conversation about somebody like that before the show, actually.
Yes. As you grow older, you either embrace your maturity or you take a step backward and you regress. You become a whiny little brat like Daniel Stern does in this movie, where he's bitching out his he's bitching out his wife, Ellen Barkin, about his record collection and how he files all his records away.
You got James Brown and the Jays.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be in the B and then R&B on top of that.
Well, see,
the R&B section in the B's.
Here's what you do. You fix this problem immediately. Say, you know what, woman, don't touch my records.
Well, see, now we have everything in MP3s and in WAV files, and we file them in our computers and on our disks and on our hard drives. In different kinds of storage situations going on. I have an enormous collection of music, and it's all sorted for me. Thank you, Windows 10. But back then, you had physical media. Hey, how about that? So this is an incredible cast. You got Steve Guttenberg, who I always liked. I always liked Steve Guttenberg.
This is pre-Police Academy. This is right before Police Academy.
This is pre-Police Academy. It's
but post.
Do you remember a 3D movie he made, The Man Who Wasn't There?
Yeah, he did that right after this, I think. Like that's 83.
I actually like that movie too, even though it's so fucking stupid.
This was after some of his earlier work.
He did. You know what I remember him from? Okay, Well, I think I mentioned this to you and Chris Cooling for our Leave Yesterday Behind episode.
Yeah.
He had made a television movie called To Race the Wind, where he played the first blind man to be accepted into Harvard University.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. I was thinking
good movie.
I was thinking Can't Stop the Music with Village People. He was in that. He was the guy on the roller skates at the beginning. He was actually starting the movie too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
he had the big Jufro in that movie. I remember that. Because they had afros and they had Jufros. Jufros are for white people, afros are for black people. So big hair movie.
Big hair.
And then also he was in the television movie, the very popular television movie, The Day After, directed by Nicholas Meyer.
Oh, no, so that would have been after this. This would have been actually after.
That would have been 1983. That was the year of Gutenberg. Okay, and then after that, you got Daniel Stern, of course, becoming really popular later on with the Home Alone movies. Mickey Rourke, we all know who the hell he is. Mickey
Rourke, who it's so sad when you see somebody so cool and good looking, and then to see like something happen to their face, it makes me sad. I think that the reason his face is so messed up, he was an idiot, needed some boxing.
He did a lot of boxing,
and it messed up his face, and then they tried to fix his face, and then that just made him look weird.
Oh, but I'm sorry, Mickey Rourke, fine actor. Fine. Yeah. Everything he's in, he's like one of these guys who's definitely like a character actor. You throw him in there and he's just he possesses the scenery around him. He's like a piece of art direction all unto himself. And then after you have Kevin Bacon, of course. Kevin Bacon, this was not his first movie though. National Lampoon's Animal House was his first.
The thing with Kevin Bacon, he kept almost hitting. He kept almost like he was like, because he has a face you remember. He has a very unique face. So you see him in like something like Animal House, and I remember him from that. Although he was like, it turns out he was like super young when he did that. He was like 18 when he did that.
Yes.
So he's still only like in his early 20s when he's.
And then right after that, Friday the 13th, he was in.
Right for Friday the 13th. So it's like he was right.
He didn't know. I don't think Kevin Bacon caught on until the late 80s, early 90s when he was in movies like Flatliners and stuff like that.
Footloose.
Oh, Footloose too. But that was maybe one of the few times he actually got into something. But
then he'd do a bunch of he'd get something going on from Footloose, but then he'd do something like Quicksilver, where no one would go to. Strange
kind of I guess playing like troubled young men, like in the Kiefer Sutherland vein.
Yeah,
that kind of a thing. And then you have, of course, Tim Daly, who we mentioned, Ellen Barkin. And then Paul Reiser. Paul Reiser would actually become probably...
Paul Reiser playing Paul Reiser. Paul Reiser is Paul Reiser in something.
But he's a guy that you can easily forget. And then he pops up in Aliens and becomes, he's like the yuppie bad guy in that.
Yeah, him playing Paul Reiser works for that.
But he was still like a stand-up comic all through that. So he wound up being on the show Mad About You with Helen Hunt, right?
Yeah.
So I enjoyed this movie a lot, mainly for the dialogue, because it's just dialogue back and forth. And when you're looking at the scene that they show in the episode, it feels like a scene from Seinfeld or something. They're having a conversation.
Yeah, it's almost the same kind of diner and everything.
Yeah,
and then they kind of like talk about that's what Siskel does. It's like weird. Siskel does these weird sort of backhanded compliments. We were talking about in our other show. About how he'll say something, but it's like he's complimenting him, but it's like he's like, it's so nice to have these sort of small, simple films,
Small, simple film.
And it's like, okay. Barry Levinson put his heart and soul into this movie. It's like, okay, I'm doing a small, simple film. Okay.
And it's similar to Chan is Missing, which is Wayne Wang's first film, and also a very kind of a simple thing, shot in black and white and all that stuff. And I think it's meant to be kind of a rebuke toward Blade Runner.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But next is 8 Minutes to Midnight, which is a documentary from 1981, a portrait of Dr. Helen Caldicott. She's an anti-nuclear weapons activist.
Yeah,
which I would think all of us are in a way.
Yeah,
because this isn't nuclear weapons. To me, there's nothing controversial about that.
Yeah, but I gotta say, her impassioned speech about the Aboriginals and the Indians, she lost me immediately. Because she comes up there, she looks like such a whiny, white, entitled hippie type, coming up talking about
what I was thinking.
Aboriginals, and they've lived here for millions of years. Human beings haven't been around for millions of years. I don't know where you pulled that out of your ass. And I'm like, yes.
For the record, both David and I are liberal.
Yeah, we are. We honestly, people, we actually care, but we see the world.
You know what it is? We can smell our own. And she came over to me like a snowflake social justice warrior too.
Yes.
And Ebert, and this is to their credit. Ebert, Siskel and Ebert, and I mentioned this to you yesterday in conversation, they're not political, and they're fearless when it comes to things they like and things they don't like in movies. And it's something that you really don't see anymore because it's all conglomerates now, and every business owns every business. And you had mentioned before that Disney bought Tribune, which owned at the movies at the time, still didn't stop them from ranking movies based on whether or not they actually like them instead of
they would
spreading
rip
messages.
Disney movies all the time, even when they moved over to Disney.
And this is one of my big problems with The Last Jedi that came out recently.
Even though you said you weren't going to talk about it, but okay.
The politics, just the politics of the. I felt like messages were being thrown at me, and I feel like Kathleen
Not to
Kennedy,
me. It's a Star Wars movie. It's a kid's movie.
It's not a Star Wars movie.
It is.
This is Star Wars if it were directed by Oliver Stone or Spike Lee. But my point being that both Siskel and Ebert, they call the movie flat, repetitive, and boring. They don't like it. They say it's a documentary about a documentary, which is interesting in and of itself. It's a photograph of the photograph. It's like, this woman is so brave and everything. Yeah, that's wonderful, but you're not really giving us anything. All you're doing is showing us press junkets and tours and book release parties.
So it's almost like she's saying, look how wonderful I am, the great white goddess saving everyone from themselves. Look at me.
Yeah.
The reason why I've come here today is that 2 weeks ago I was in Australia. That's where I come from. And the Indians of Australia are the Aborigines. And they've lived there for millions of years. And it happens that the government has just passed a law saying the Aborigines own their sacred tribal land. It's their land. And just after they passed that law, the government found uranium on the land. So then the government passed another law and they said, however, you own the land, but if we find uranium on it, we're allowed to take the uranium. You made a slideshow for me, and I took those slideshows to show to the Aborigines. And there was a man called Dick, who is the tribal leader. He owns the land, Dick. And Dick came out of the meeting and he said, when I saw those pictures, he said, it hurts my heart in here to see those pictures. I don't know what we can do, folks, but we've got to stop it. You see what...
Yeah, and you want to sit in a theater. That's not a popcorn movie. You can't sit there munching on popcorn watching this courageous woman.
So you're not saying that something like Showa is not the feel-good hit of the year?
No, Showa would not be the feel-good hit of the year anyway. So moving on, we go to Chan is Missing from 1982. Independent movie directed by Wayne Wang, who directed one of my favorite movies later on called Smoke. Do you remember that movie? Harvey Keitel, William Hurt.
Harvey, they're all just in a smoke shop. I feel like, and it's a kind of a semi-sequel to another movie that he did. Like it's
no. There was a sequel to it made the next year called Blue in the Face.
Ah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Which wasn't as good because it was all improvised. There was no script. But with this one, with Smoke was just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful movie. I love it. I love it so much.
And it seems like they're very similar films. Like they're kind of they're very character-oriented.
Character-driven, yes. This is actually, I'm remembering it now as I'm talking about it. This is the kind of movie I would love to make. Just something about people. And it's widely, they mention this, it's widely recognized as the first Asian American movie, narrative film to get theatrical distribution and critical acclaim outside of the Asian American community. So white people liked it.
I love even the way the gun is photographed, highlighting its importance by showing it in relief like that, the quiet, and then the music. Chan is Missing has a very special ending, which is a clever twist, appropriate enough, on those old Charlie Chan movies where Charlie gathers all the suspects into the same room. But this is a difference. Rather than give us characters who each might have a reason for killing this guy Chan, this film gives us characters, and they each have a different opinion about Chan and who he really is. In this film, various elements of Chan's character are placed on display, and we are left with a lot of questions. Chan is Missing has been very cleverly directed by Wayne Wang. Visual style of the film really reminds me of John Cassavetes' first movie, Shadows. Both films are quite intimate with their characters, with a lot of handheld close-ups, black and white again. And that is what also encourages us to look for Chan. Chan is Missing is a terrific little movie. I just hope you can find it in your town.
Yeah, well, and that's the funny thing of their review of, again, it goes to the backhanded compliment about how, did you know that there are different kinds of Asians?
Yeah.
Did you know that they know they can kind of like they know what the like don't talk like this, and then they slap themselves on the wrist with like white guilt. They say, "Yeah, we're ignorant."
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing about it's such the movie's very intelligent. It's a very intelligent movie. Okay, it's basically kind of because it's shot in black and white. It's made to look like a film noir type thing, and it's a play on Charlie Chan and all that stuff, and it has to do with searching for this missing person, and everybody and it's a very funny movie actually. It's like it's almost like a documentary in a way because these people feel real to you when you're watching it. So let's move on. Before we get into Blade Runner, we have to talk about the dogs of the week. Death Dorm, I can't find any information for it. It's apparently a slasher film, and Siskel and Ebert talk about it. This is Siskel's dog of the week, and they talk about how they hate slasher films.
Well, but didn't it have another title also? Like he said, it was like Cuts or Trims or something. Like something had another title before, and then he said it. But it's actually called Death Dorm or something like that.
I have no clue. I can't find any information about this. If it was released under the title Death Dorm in Chicago or something, you'd think it would be released under that title everywhere and you'd be able to find it. And then we have Roger Ebert's dog of the week, which is Paradise, starring Willie Ames and Phoebe Cates. Willie Ames, I just did my review for Zapped, which will be coming out next week, which will probably already be out by the time this episode drops. Willie Ames is the Huckleberry of Zapped. He's the one who encourages Scott Baio to do terrible things. Anyway.
Yeah.
For some reason, Willie Ames and Phoebe Cates find themselves together, and I don't know what happens. Lots of running around naked, having sex. Is that what happens?
Yeah, I vaguely remember this movie. This is like goes back to your vintage cable box. This is a cable movie, and I had seen a commercial for it, and I'm like, this looks like the Blue Lagoon.
Right, Blue Lagoon ripoff.
Because it is.
Kind of thing.
And it's these kids, and they're in the desert, and then they somehow find this oasis, and then Phoebe Cates gets naked. This was back in the days when she was getting naked and everything.
She was getting naked in every movie, and then sort of tries to reinvent
And by the
herself.
way, young Phoebe Cates.
Oh, yeah. Gorgeous woman. I knew of her because I had a girlfriend a long time ago who lived in the same apartment building as her and Kevin Kline, who was her husband.
Ooh.
And she used to run in and out of the apartment building all the time, and she looked really good, by the way. Madonna also lived in the building.
Oh, that's been rocking building there.
Yeah, well, it was in a nice area. It was right off Central Park. I know very little about this movie except Willie Ames, of course, child actor. He was one episode of The Odd Couple. He played Felix's son, Leonard. He became a born again Christian in the 90s.
Yeah, and now he's Bible Man. He's Bible Man.
We move on to a movie that is very it's hard to find. It's called Bloody Runner. How do you pronounce that again, David?
Bloody Runner?
Bloody Runner. Right, Bloody Runner. And I believe Eddie James Olmos plays Bloody. And
yes.
Bloody is an angry man.
Yeah.
We're just kidding. Actually, it's called
Blade. And complains.
It's actually called Blade Runner, and it's from 1982. And controversial opinion that I'll whip out on you.
All right.
This is one of the greatest movies ever made in the history of film. It is seriously one of the greatest. In my top 5, probably number 2 or number 1. It's a movie I always go back to. I have seen this movie so many times in many different iterations, and I own several different versions of this film because, like a George Lucas, there are several cuts of this movie that run around, but are still in circulation, I might add.
Yeah.
They never hid this movie from the public. They never tried to keep versions away from other people. Even when the director's cut came out in 92, versions of the movie were still available. You could still go everywhere and find any particular version of Blade Runner. But they're reviewing the 1982 version, which contains, I guess, the controversial narration from Harrison Ford and the more upbeat ending.
Yeah.
Because I guess somebody wanted a happy ending. I do know most of the stories around why that happened. But let's talk about the movie as it was seen in 82 for now.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time I saw it was on cable television.
Interesting.
In 1984 and 1985. And I was absolutely blown away by this movie. And it will be probably my final Vintage Cable Box article, because this is a movie that really opened the door of possibilities.
Well, I'm trying to think of how old you would have been. So you would have been like 14?
84, I would have been 11.
84, 85? 84.
I would have been 11 or 12, probably 11.
84. Oh, okay, I'm doing math bad. Okay, yeah, you're right. I saw it when it came out, so I would have been. This came out when December, 82.
I think it might have been May.
May of 80. Oh, summer 82. Oh, you're right. You're right. It came out right around when E.T. came out. Yeah. So that would have
that was one of the many
been,
reasons given for its.
10.
Actually, well, let me see. Blade Runner. Why isn't it giving me the actual date?
Because I watched it and saw it in a big theater. Since it didn't play super long, I'm pretty sure I saw it like in summer 82. I remember I went with my mom and my brother.
No, June. It came out June 25th, 1982.
There you go. I saw it. I think I saw it in 70 millimeter.
You actually went to see it was rated R. They dragged you to see an R-rated movie.
Oh hell, I was going to R-rated movies even before I saw Excalibur when I was like in 9.
And what's more, I mean, it's like somewhere between a middle and a hard R, because there's graphic violence, there's nudity.
I remember nudity and going, ooh, boobies. But I was like, I would have been 10. Let's see. I went with my mom and my brother. My brother, of course, was more silly, and he was like acting up in the theater, being annoying. And I was kind of just sitting there, just like laughing at him. And then the movie started. We were okay. But I saw it, and I guess I don't think I was bored.
The movie probably put you guys in a trance if you're looking at it on a huge screen.
Well, it was one of those things where it's a 70 millimeter presentation, but in a multiplex. So I think it was more like a big theater, but not like a huge, massive theater, but like a big theater, but like really good sound. You know, that 70 millimeter sound. But I saw it, and I was like, I can't even. Obviously, didn't make much of an impact on me because it doesn't resonate with me, at least as far as my childhood, as like saying E.T. or even Star Trek 2, which I think I would have seen like maybe just right before that in another theater. I was probably just bored. Because it was like, ooh, science. Oh, because you go in, it was kind of promoted as like Han Solo in the future, and like, he's not Han Solo in this.
No, he's not.
In fact, he's kind of like the Harrison Ford that we know, which is this sort of
cranky,
depressed, kind of drunk, slurring his words, kind of building a shelf because he's really a carpenter and he just doesn't want to deal with people.
Yeah,
it didn't have much of an impact on me then. Okay, so I watch it. And this, maybe we can talk about this a little bit. When it came out on a home video, it was one of those weird things where it was released by Warner Brothers, but came out on Embassy Home Video because of the production. I think like the Lad Company, production company, Embassy.
Yeah, I think basically the contracts did not extend to home media.
At least not
it was
yet.
Only Warner Brothers had control of it in theaters, and the Yorkin company, Tandem Productions, had control of it for everything else. Hampton Fancher was given the way the story began, and this is in the excellent documentary that I recommend for anyone interested. This is an incredible 3-hour documentary that came with the box set, and it's still available. You can find it. It's called Dangerous Days. That was the original title of Blade Runner script. Hampton Fancher came into a little bit of money, and he decided, I'm going to invest in a movie. I'm going to buy the rights to something, and he saw that science fiction was becoming very popular because of Star Wars. So he bought the rights to the Philip K. Dick book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And then he started shopping it around, and nobody was interested at the time. And so he started working on a script, and he started working on kind of like revisions of how he would change the script, because in the story is a lot different, much more different than what we see in the final movie. So he made it a little more commercial, a little more Hollywood. He got the attention of what was his name? The producer, Michael Dealey, the guy who produced The Deer Hunter for Michael Cimino, and Michael Dealey brought it to Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott seemed interested, but then he got an offer to direct Dune, which of course we know never happened.
No.
What happened was Ridley Scott's older brother died. He was depressed, and he wanted to get working on something that was going to take a little less time than Dune, because as we know, Dune took forever to make. And then Ridley Scott came in, and he looked at the script. He said it needed a rewrite, so they sent it to David Peoples, another great screenwriter, who shaped it into what the movie was that we all remember. They got a budget. They got into a partnership, unfortunately, with like different companies. Alan Ladd's Ladd Company, the Shaw, Sir Run Shaw,
yeah,
and the Blade Runner partnership, of course, with Tandem Productions, all of them getting financing and putting it together for a budget a little under $30 million. and then it was made, but it flopped when it came out, and probably, you know, when I look at the movie, I was absolutely completely mesmerized by it. This movie is so influential. It's like right up there with, like, say 2001 or Star Wars in as far how it influenced cinema as we know it. Every filmmaker after Blade Runner wanted to make a Blade Runner, and a lot of them did, and a lot of them tried their hand at it, and it's such a staggering work.
One could say it is, in a way, sort of a spiritual sequel to Alien. It's got the same kind of production design, I would say. It's the thing about it is, and they get into it in the review, is it is the plot is it's serviceable. It's got a serviceable plot. Like you kind of care about the characters. And
there's kind of, okay, you mentioned Alien, right?
Yeah.
And you remember the character Ian Holm played. He played an android.
Yeah.
At the end of Alien, and he had that kind of weird milky blood and everything, and weird mannerisms or something like that. But he was made to kind of be more human than human, as Tyrell says.
Yeah.
And some of the production values, some of the stuff that we see, some of the monitor screens and the sound effects in Blade Runner were taken from Alien. And as a matter of fact, when they were working on their temp tracks, they used segments of Jerry Goldsmith's score for Alien.
However, I still like that.
And if you look at the work print, that is on the Final Cut box set. I have it. And if you look at the work print, the latter half of the movie is all Goldsmith music from Alien and some bits from Planet of the Apes as well.
Well, but you can't really top the Vangelis score.
The Vangelis score, which I have 3 different versions of. I have a version that was released to the American public that was not Vangelis, but a bunch of LA studio musicians doing a knockoff version of the Blade Runner score. Then his score came out in '93 to coincide with the release of the director's score. After the director's cut came out, people were like, "Where's the Vangelis score? We want it." So Warner Brothers finally released Vangelis' score for that. And then there are segments of his score available on some of his greatest hits collections. What a score! I mean, this. Oh man, I can't even tell you how much Blade Runner means to me as a movie, and it's just a fantastic. I love it. I just love this film.
But I would say anybody who has never seen it, okay, don't go in expect it to be more of, and we kind of talked about this when we talked about Close Encounters. Don't expect like a cohesive plot of understanding what's going on. It's very sort of dreamlike. The like I said, the plot, and then when you get to the actual plot and you have the whole sort of, I guess, the love story. The motivations of why he loves her are not really fully explained, especially because he knows that she's not real, and she knows that she knows that she's like not human, and he knows that she's not human, but he's falling in love with her anyway. He seems, maybe it's because the character, the way Harrison Ford plays him, he seems very lonely, and he seems very distraught through the whole thing, because it's like,
well, yeah, and also
he comes in, he's like I'm even more retired now.
You get a couple
back in.
Yeah, but you get a couple of things that are missing in the director's cut. You get a couple of extra details in the original release. He's apparently divorced.
Oh, see, I watched
says,
I forgot stuff.
He orders sushi or something. He has some sushi, and he says, "Sushi. That's what my ex-wife used to call me. Cold fish." You never hear.
So now that would have been with the voiceover.
When you take the voiceover out, you're not aware of that detail. And that's because Ridley Scott somehow got it into his head that Rick Deckard, Harrison Ford's character, was an android. And he uses a couple of visual markers there. The unicorn at the end of the movie in the original cut, I always wondered about that. What the hell did that mean?
Yeah.
My mother would fill in the blanks for me and say, well, I think that Olmos' character is signaling to Harrison Ford that he was there, decided not to kill Rachel, and left the unicorn there to explain to us that Rachel was unique, that she had no limited lifespan, no 4-year lifespan that all the replicants do. And I went with that. I was fine with that for years. And then I see the director's cut in '92, and I see that Rick Deckard is dreaming of unicorns.
Yeah.
And then he leaves the unicorn at the end. And when he picks it up to marvel at it and show it to the audience, we then suspect that Olmos knows that Harrison Ford is a replicant.
Yeah, I want to point a couple things out about about Ebert, about a guy who I respect, but man, he had like stupid idiot moment. Because first he says it's the year 2020, even though at the very beginning, Los Angeles 2019, dummy.
Yes.
Then he keeps saying replicant.
Replicant.
You know, Ebert, you were quite a replicant, I gotta say.
I don't call them replicants. I call them replicans.
Yes.
But because they can. They don't get it. Ebert and Siskel and Ebert don't get it. They don't understand this movie. And they're doing their best to try and marginalize it as just kind of a visual effects movie.
Ebert does give it a thumbs up, but he gives it like a marginal thumbs up just on the visuals and
just on the visual effects. He said, well, you know, but he doesn't say, oh, if you like visual effects, go see this movie, like a lot of critics do these days. That's one of the points I was making to you last night. These critics don't, Siskel and Ebert are like, you know, I don't like it. I just don't like it.
About halfway through Blade Runner, I realized I stopped caring about the people in the movie. I was interested mostly in the special effects. It's a great movie to look at, but a hard one to care about. I didn't appreciate the predictable story, the standard characters, the cliffhanging cliches, but I do think the special effects make Blade Runner worth going to see.
I agree with part of your review. Predictable, cliches.
What about the special effects?
Dazzling for the first 20 minutes, and then what? I mean, this story goes no place as far as I'm concerned. I invested a lot of energy in this movie watching it because it was so striking looking. And Harrison Ford is an attractive actor, and he does take us through any adventure that he's in. But I'm sitting there halfway through the picture saying, where is this going? And when it's over, I think I've wasted my time. I admire the special effects, but Roger, there are a lot of people in this country and in England who can do this quality of special effects, so I don't
There are not a lot of people who can do this
a handful.
quality.
What I'm saying is that
5 or 6.
They in and of themselves, that in and of themselves doesn't make it a film worth going to see.
I'm trying to give Blade Runner a pretty specific review. I didn't believe in the story. I didn't care about the characters. On the other hand, to look at the film, the set decoration, the design, the visual conception of this Los Angeles didn't get tired for me in 20 minutes. I felt as if I were being shown a world I hadn't seen before.
It was done by Ridley Scott, who made a similarly attractive-looking film, an Alien, but at least they had a conventional pull you through the picture story there, a horror film. This film, I think, is a waste of time. Pretty to look at, but a waste of time.
Siskel is a little more mean about it. He's like, I don't like. He's like, yes, the special effects are great, and then you get into it, and then nothing happens. And he's kind of right, but he
There's
just
a
wasn't
story
ready
in there.
for
Come
what
on.
it was. And then I guess this dovetails into them reviewing 10 years later the director's cut.
Yeah, the director's cut. Well, hang on. I had another thought.
Okay.
For some reason in the clip that they show, they cut out the part of her playing the music, and I wonder why. And then I was thinking that the scene in the corridor, looking at it fresh again, it's very disturbing on a few levels, because and according to the crew in the book that I mentioned, they called it the rape in the corridor, because it
feels very rapey, and it's like, it's so weird. It's like, this is the 80s, where you can't on a family show a clip from a movie. The clip that they send them is the most kind of disturbing rapey clip that you can watch. I'm like, geez, ooh.
But okay, now in 2018, it looks like rape.
Yeah.
In 1982, what it looked like to me, when I saw it in 1984 anyway, it looked like a man who was trying to provoke an emotional reaction from a woman by getting physical with her, so that she would either give in to her emotion or her anger or whatever passion, or realize that she is not a real person, that she's an android. So what I saw it was just he was antagonizing her for her benefit. That's how I saw it in 1984. Today, yes, it looks like rape. It's weird.
But it's also, you have to remember, like, having seen so many of Harrison Ford's performances and having seen that he was kind of going for something with that character, because the character is kind of this downer, depressed guy.
Well, yeah, and by all accounts, Ford was depressed during the shooting.
Get kind of rapey because he's messed up in the head. So it works with the character, but seeing it is like, ooh, it did give me the
scene was shot in many different ways, though. When you look at the documentary Danger Stage, you can see where they were going for different reactions. They have it becomes like a full-on kind of sex scene in the corridor. He has his hands all over her. She spreads her legs. In one shot, he spreads them for her. In another shot, it was like Ridley Scott is a lunatic when he shoots, because he does hundreds of takes and he always wants to do things slightly differently to see where he's going to go with it. And I guess they decided to go with this kind of antagonistical thing going on.
I just realized it kind of reminds me of that, to quote Mike Tyson, I'm going to rape you till you love me.
Jesus Christ.
Kind of feels like that.
I don't see, Sean Young, who was never more beautiful than in this movie. She's absolute knockout in this movie in the way she's photographed.
It's weird, and in different ways. She's got that sort of cold ice princess thing going on at the beginning, and then when she gets her hair out and she looks like this sort of feral cave woman.
She's
like both looks work.
So lovely. But there's a great line in the movie that they don't even talk about. I don't understand why they don't see what the point of the story is. And Siskel says he wasted his time watching the movie. I'm like, what? You wasted your time? It's a waste of time? What this movie is about being human. That's what it's about. That's the whole point of the movie. What it is to be a human. What it is to compassion, to understand compassion. What it is to be, according to Rutger Hauer's character, what it is to be a slave. There's a bit in there where she says, that test you ran on me? Have you ever tried using that test on yourself?
Yeah.
It's just, this is the point of the movie right there, is that as humans, we have become detached from our humanity, and then we treat those that we create as slaves because we have a God complex or something like that. And it's just I think it's a wonderful message. It's an incredible film to look at.
Well, also, sort of the idea that is Deckard a replicant or not, it's intentionally ambiguous. So it basically is Ridley Scott. I mean, Ridley Scott has gone on record as saying he is.
Yeah, but
the writers have said he isn't. So it's basically, you know what? He could be, he could not be. And that's not necessarily something you need to worry about.
All right, so we can get into the 92 director's cut now, because this is the question that arises when you look at the ending of the movie, and also some of the little cues that Ridley Scott tries to give you. He just decided over 10 years, okay, you know what, I think Rick Deckard is an android. I don't think he was thinking about it in 82 when he shot it. Now, I'll tell you my opinion right now, and you can agree or disagree. I don't think he's a replicant. I think he's a human being. I haven't seen 2049, so I have no idea. Don't ruin it for me yet.
Not saying anything.
The reason I think he's a human is because that contributes more to the story. It means more to me that he understands as a human compassion, and he understands it looking at and observing and dealing with people like Sean Young and Rutger Hauer in the movie. Rutger Hauer saves his life. Rutger Hauer is a replicant. Rutger Hauer demonstrates compassion and saves his life. To me, it's much more meaningful to me if Rick Deckard's character is a human learning these things. It means nothing to me if he's an android. It becomes cold. It lacks genuine sympathy. It lacks genuine understanding. It has more meaning if he's a human learning these things.
I agree with your assessment. We'll do it in our review of 2049. And by the way, I'm going to guess our review of 2049 will be spoilerific. And we will probably get all up in that, I'm going to guess.
Okay.
So
why not? It's been how many months? It's been since October.
Yeah. So I will have more to say on Deckard's, if he is or if he isn't.
Well, when you saw it in 92, or no, I'm sorry, 92. Let's say the director's cut. When you saw the director's cut, what did you think? Did you think it was horse shit?
Well, okay, I watched it a few times because I got it on Laserdisc. So I watched it when it came out. By the way, it cost $50.
$50. Yeah, my wife has the director's cut on Laserdisc as well.
It's like over $100 now.
I have a video cassette, special package of it. I have a special VHS of the director's cut that comes with a lithograph from the film, a 35 millimeter print from the film, and the script. So I have all of that, and it came in a box set.
So I've been sitting on that one for a while. I also recently just purchased the Criterion Collection edition of the original theatrical cut, which isn't really the theatrical. It's the international cut, which is what we saw in the theaters here with all the violence put back in, which is like 2 or 3 seconds here and there.
I have that too.
And what's funny about this director's cut is they took some of the violence out again. But it's like it is. I watched this because I recently watched the original cut and I was like, that was pretty good. And so then I watched this and I'm like, every time I watch it, like I have a different reaction to it. This time I was a little more bored. I was a little less engaged. And also the narration, like you said, it can kind of help. But in this case, not having the narration actually seemed in weird ways like I enjoyed it a little less, but I thought it was a little better.
Did you see the director's cut when it came out in theaters?
No, because I only think it played like in Los Angeles and I don't think it played. It may have played in Seattle in like special theaters once or something.
It did play in New York, and I saw it twice when it came out.
Yeah.
I dragged friends. I dragged friends to see it. I dragged a girl to see it the first time on this enormous screen at the Lowe's Theater, I think, in the East Village. Enormous screen, great sound. Oh man, it was incredible to
I'm
look
gonna
at.
guess because it was so limited of a release, it was probably a packed house too, right?
Oh, it was packed. Yeah, it was completely packed. And even then, a couple of weeks later, it was still playing in the same theater.
Yeah, that was back
but
when
it was playing in a different room. I took my friend Colin to see it, and it was in a smaller screen, but still big. I mean, it was big, but it was a smaller screen, good sound, everything. He never saw the movie. He was completely blown away by it because he loved all the actors in it because he's seen so many of the actors before. And he's like, oh, that's Rutger Hauer. Oh, that's Edward James Olmos.
And
that's Emma Walsh.
That kind of gets to the review of them coming back and reviewing the director's cut. Ebert says it's pretty much the same movie.
You know what? Ebert said something that always stuck with me about Blade Runner, both versions, the original and the director's cut. He said one thing that he thought was very clever was that memories could be used to control people. He says this, and I always thought, what does that mean exactly? Can you implant memories in people and then control them with those memories?
Yes.
And it's like, what is it? Is it like a dog or a cat that you give them a certain scent and the scent connects them to a memory?
You have certain. See, we are a product of both genetics and environment, and all of the things that we do are informed by our previous actions of this went well, this didn't go well, this happened to me, this doesn't happen to me. So yeah, it will inform you of like, I don't want to do that because this bad thing happened to me, or I'm going to do this again because I had a wonderful experience. That's how we function. We're all like learning. We're all learning computers. Some people learn more than others, but we're all just sort of going on our best guess of what happened before. And eventually you have enough experience built up of like memories, then you can make decisions based on how things went before. I also noticed that Siskel now liked the movie. Mostly I think because he had sort of a bromance with Harrison Ford. He's like, he's so attractive. He's got this was
this was 1992, a movie that Harrison Ford made at the beginning of his acting career, you might say. Before he actually exploded. I mean, like he was in Star Wars, he was in Empire, he was becoming popular.
Yeah.
And then he does Blade Runner, and then he does Indiana Jones.
I'm thinking Witness is really when he
Witness. He did The Mosquito Coast. He did these fantastic films, and I guess time has kind of has a more favorable assessment of Harrison Ford's career up to that point. 92.
Yeah.
He was still on top of it, Harrison Ford, and he was really kind of.
And he had yet to do The Fugitive, even bigger. He'd yet to do like The Fugitive and like Clear and Present Danger, and he was even bigger later.
For me, this is one of his best performances because there's a lot of facets in here. There's a lot of this. There's a wonderful scene where Sean Young is trying to convince him that she's human. She's like, there's a picture of me and my mother, and he's walking this very thin line between sympathy and anger, and he's doing a really good job. I mean, it's like Harrison Ford, by his own admission, did not have a good time on the film. He got into constant fights with Ridley Scott. He felt like he was just window dressing for all the production design, which, if you were to look at it negatively, you would see it that way. It was all at night in the rain. It depressed him. He didn't like working with Sean Young at all.
Was that what informed the character then of him just because he seemed uncomfortable and cranky?
He seemed uncomfortable and cranky, and he did his own stunts. He only once is he doubled in that movie.
Oh,
so most of that's why he did a lot of that what he called physical acting.
Although he has come around and said that he likes the movie now.
Well, that's because the movie had grown such a huge cult around it for years.
This is like people just decide something is good. Honestly, at that time in the history of older people were not into science fiction the way that they are now. Like people are much more science fiction connoisseurs now. Whereas at the time you had your kind of book science fiction people, and then you had everybody else. And it was like now it's a little more, everybody seems to be more hip with good science fiction. Although we can kind of dovetail now into 2049. Would that be all right?
Dovetailing into 2040. First, I wanted to make a comment about the final cut, which was released in 2007, I think.
Yeah.
Which came as part of the box set. And this is another one of these situations where Ridley Scott this is the final cut, and I mean it, I promise. So it adds a new scene, a new shot of a unicorn, a much better shot of the unicorn, I think.
I got a question about that. I got a question. That shot that they put in the director's cut, was that just like a leftover shot from something like Legend or something that he just had sitting around?
He was no. What I suspect, they don't really answer that question, and I know it had to have been because Ivor Powell, I believe, Terry Rawlings. I think it was Terry Rawlings who edited the movie and also edited Legend. Legend was going to be Ridley Scott's next project, but what he wanted to do was a couple of tests involving a unicorn. So he used some of the resources from Blade Runner to shoot a test shot of a unicorn.
And that's probably just what they used. They just had that extra shot
So they had that, and they had a couple other shots, and they use a better shot of a unicorn for the final cut. And then they also, at the end when Rutger Hauer dies and he releases the dove, in the original cut, the dove flies off into a clear blue sky, which is not supposed to be present in Blade Runner. So they changed it. They made it a darker sky.
Yeah, it looks like almost like the sun's coming up kind of thing.
And they did really just a wonderful job being able to, and it's really good to actually have all those cuts because you can compare them. There's even a television cut that has some different shots in it too, when it was put on.
Probably, I think the director's cut may have had a slightly different sound mix.
A slightly different sound. Yeah.
Because it sounded a little. I mean, I have like the nice setup and everything. So I watched the original cut on the Criterion disc. It's really good. It has a very sort of a Dolby stereo sound to it. I watch the director's cut, which is also in a Dolby stereo mix, supposedly. It sounds a little less open, a little more puny for some reason to me. Maybe I'd have to go back, but it seemed a little less robust to me.
Well, in the final cut box set,
that probably has the best sound because they probably went in and really fixed it and cleaned it up.
It does. It absolutely does, and you can hear everything, and it's a nice mix between sound effects, music, and dialogue. Just from a production standpoint, it's one of the best produced DVDs that I own.
It probably looks excellent on like Blu-ray, and
it's amazing. And also, if you look at the documentary, you'll see how many setups and shots Ridley Scott did, and how many eventually make it into the film. And this is what drove the producers nuts, is because he just kept doing take after take after take. So that, I guess, will lead into this new version of. I'm sorry, not a new. It's a sequel.
It's a sequel?
No. It's not a sequel. It's not a prequel.
That's an equal.
To some people, I guess. I'm a little turned off by the idea of having two actors that I don't really like in a movie.
Two actors?
I'm not going to let that stop me from seeing it. Of course, I was destined to see it anyway. I'm a movie lover. I love Blade Runner. You don't. But the thing is, what I don't like is when people tell me, "Oh, if you love Blade Runner, you'll love this, and if you don't love this movie, then you're not a Blade Runner fan," which I think is horseshit. Because I like, as much as I disliked Last Jedi, I'm still a Star Wars fan. Yeah. It's a universe I love. It's a story. It's a method of storytelling, and I can only hope that the director of this tries to kind of give us what Ridley Scott was as a director in 1981 when he set about making Blade Runner.
Every civilization was built off the back of a disposable workforce. But I can only make so many. Happy birthday.
There is an order to things. That's what we do here. We keep order. The world is built on a wall that separates kind. Tell either side there's no wall, you bought a war.
You're a cop. I did your job once. I was good at it. I know.
Harrison Ford returns as the venerable, world-weary android or replicant killer Rick Deckard in Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve. From a script by original Blade Runner writer Hampton Fancher, working with Michael Green from Fancher's story. The sequel stars Flavor of the Month Ryan Gosling as Kay, a Blade Runner who is also a replicant, in search of his past as he begins to believe he might possibly be the love child of Deckard and replicant mother Rachel, played by Sean Young in the original, and simulated in this movie by Lauren Pita with the assistance of digital computer technology. In this scene, Kay is being reprimanded by his xenophobic superior, played with reptilian intensity by Robin Wright.
It is my job to keep order. That's what we do here. We keep order.
You want it gone?
Erase everything.
Even the child?
All trace. You have anything more to say?
I've never retired something that was born before.
What's the difference?
To be born is to have a soul, I guess.
Are you telling me no?
I wasn't aware that was an option, madam.
Attaboy. Hey, you've been getting on fine without one.
What's that, madam?
A soul.
Oh, yeah, that's some intense stuff there.
Robin Wright is obviously channeling M.M. Walsh, the clever misdirect of having a Blade Runner seek out his humanity only to be waylaid by the obtuse bureaucracy and the schemes of psychotic Neander Wallace, played by frustrating method actor Jared Leto, provide cover for the film's true purpose, to unite Harrison Ford's Rick Deckard with his long-lost daughter. I have to admit, I had misgivings about the sequel, but I was impressed by the lack of modern movie-making techniques. Other than the smooth tracking shots and computer-heavy visual effects, this is a film that takes its time in telling its story, and it was quite refreshing to behold. The photography and the visual effects are staggering and awe-inspiring, yes, but name me one science fiction or a fantasy film made these days that doesn't have exceptional state-of-the-art visual effects and photography. When Blade Runner was made in 1981, 1982, movies like that weren't being made on a regular basis, therefore the visuals stood out. Now that everything being made is perfect and beautiful, it leaves little room for versatility or a different take on the material. There's nothing new under the sun, but Blade Runner 2049 remains a bold and beautiful statement. My main problem with the movie is Gosling's charisma-free performance, and we have to follow this character around for over 2.5 hours, and you need only to study Ford in his scenes toward the end with Gosling. Ford has personality to spare. Jared Leto is either underutilized in his weirdo, creepy, blind guy role, or there's too much of him, but none of it is substantial. Joe Turkel was able to create a character in shorter screen time. Turkel played Tyrell as a capitalist, but Leto plays Wallace as a religious nut. It's annoying to me. The other subplot involves a relationship between Kay and his computer, and I'm serious when I say that. Yes, the computer looks like an attractive woman, but it is a computer, and therefore incapable of showing a genuine human emotion. Every time my Lenovo tells me it loves me, I start scanning for viruses. David?
Jane, you ignorant slut. I think that this is a masterpiece. I see some of your criticisms of it, but I do not care. This is a visually stunning film that sucked me in immediately, and I literally forgot all my troubles. I saw this in the theater. I didn't get up to pee once. I was focused. I was mesmerized by what was going on, and yet I could understand what was going on in this long, intricate story of mysteries that are resolved. Some aren't, but most are.
I think I used the bathroom once when Leto was doing his thing, and then they had the weird replicant coming through the weird amniotic sac through the ceiling, and then he kills the replicant for no reason at all. That's probably when I was taking my
and since
pee break.
you recently watched the Blu-ray, you were able to watch the whole scene and know what was going on.
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, and
but
so
go ahead.
Yeah, so I was, as we've said before, I go in with no expectations. I'm like, oh, I'm hearing this is getting good reviews, but I could not like it. Sometimes that happens to be like, what the hell was that? But for a long movie where not much happens, I was entertained, I was satisfied, and then I bought the Blu-ray. So that kind of gives you an idea of what, and it takes a lot to get me to buy stuff. If I really have to like it to be like, want to buy this because I love this movie. also on a technical level, seeing it, I saw it in a Dolby Cinema where the sound was loud. And that's what's great about this movie is part of it. It's an audio-visual experience. The sound is loud. The picture, the Roger Deakins photography, and he needs to win an Oscar for this, I think. Mm-hmm. The sound was great. The picture quality in the theater was great. Then I watched it on Blu-ray, and I would say that the sound and the picture are equal to me seeing it in the Dolby Cinema, even with my crappy speakers. Mm-hmm. And I was, again...
It was a very good sound mix for Blu-ray. One of the better sound mixes I think I've heard in a long time.
After watching it again, I think I actually liked it more, and I really liked it when I saw it. So I would probably put this on, like, in my personal top 10, and I might even argue that I enjoyed this more than the original Blade Runner because there was an actual plot, whereas the Blade Runner was more sort of a meditation on sort of the Philip K. Dick universe. And this had that, but it also had an actual story that built upon the original Blade Runner and some of the characters from the original Blade Runner. But it had an actual story where Kay was a detective that detected, as we talked about previous. And so there was a little bit of a mystery. It unfolded. It actually makes more sense in the second viewing. Certain plot points of like, why did they do that? And now it makes sense. But you forget stuff because you're just sort of in awe of what's going on the screen. And I want to give a special shout out to the director, Denis Villeneuve. Hope I pronounced it correctly.
I believe you did, yeah.
Because he made a film that I don't think Ridley Scott could make today. Ridley Scott has lost the magic as far as I'm concerned. He is...
Well, yeah, he couldn't direct it today, but he can backseat edit it. Because he said, well, I would have taken this out, I would have taken this out.
Well, I wouldn't.
When he was looking at it, he said, because they were asking why the box office was so poor for it, comparatively. I mean, it made decent money, not enough to cover it right now, but it will eventually make back all that money anyway.
Basically, it has become the original. It was
destined to be a cult film. It was destined to be something it wasn't going to be. This isn't a $1 billion opening. This is not a Disney film. This is not Star Wars. It's barely a franchise in its own right. I know a couple of books have been written, sequel books by people like K.W. Jeter. I read a couple of his books. I've seen some of the comic books that came out, but it wasn't like anything like Star Wars or Indiana Jones or any of those kind of You can't really do a franchise out of this. It's a little too dark for that,
No, and they start to get a little franchisey near the end of like some plot points of like, oh, they could do another one with some of these interesting ideas that they're coming up with.
So again, on your second viewing, did you catch all the Sony product placement?
I did. You explained that, but it makes perfect sense, and it's
I don't think there was any Sony product placement in the original Blade Runner.
There might not have been, but I would not be surprised if Sony buys up some things if they can get their economic stuff together. They're actually a struggling company, if you can believe it, even though they make great products.
This is very strange because if you look at the documentary Dangerous Days, there was a lot of antipathy between Ridley Scott's camp and Bud Yorkin's camp, and the two of them, their production companies came together to make this. Ridley Scott's company, Scott Free, and then Alcon Entertainment, which is, I believe, Bud Yorkin and all those people. So they all came together under the auspices of Sony Columbia to make this Blade Runner sequel.
But, and then, of course, Warner Brothers distributed it in the U.S., so I'm thinking probably some of the money came from them, too. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, like, maybe it lost a little bit of money, but it only probably lost them a few million each, and they can write them off their tax. They're all huge companies.
Well, I'm frankly glad that it's not an enormous hit. Because if it was, people would start thinking, ooh, let's do Blade Runner 3, and then let's do Blade Runner 4, and let's run this franchise into the ground.
And let's start making more really super expensive, like, slow movies. And it's like, this has to be done in a specific way.
Well, I like it. It was so refreshing to see that the director likes his images and hangs on to them. The editing, he holds on to shots for more than 5 seconds, even 10 seconds.
But it's not done in a way. You want to talk about slow and plotting. We did it on another show. We did a review of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Yeah. That's the sort of thing where this kind of thing was not done properly. Where it's just too slow and too long and too plotting. It just doesn't work when you don't. It needs to be well crafted to be able to do that properly, and that was not.
Yes, I would agree. So, thumbs up for me. Out of the, in the last, let me see. When did movies really start to suck for me? Oh, in the last 10 years, I would say. In the last 10 years, I can safely say that Blade Runner is probably the best movie that's come out of the last 10 years for me.
Last 10 years for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But where that comes from is 2007 is when I stopped really caring about movies. And I think the last best good year for movies was 1994. And then after that, I don't know. I was looking at movies that were released in 2001 because I was trying to get my bearings, and the majority of them were live action. It was very rare that an animated movie come out. Now, animated movies are a complete industry. You know, you look at box office figures, you look at the top 10, more than half of that list is animated movies. But even as far back as 2001, the majority of movies being released were live action. It's weird. At least getting really big releases, 3,000 theaters and such.
Yeah. I would recommend you going through Mr. Denis Villeneuve's filmography.
I believe I've seen a couple of his films.
Try and go through all of them.
There was nothing he did that could have prepared me for the same as Rian Johnson with Last Jedi. There's nothing in his oeuvre that would indicate to me that he had the qualifications or the skill to make the movie.
It did to me. He made this movie called Enemy. I don't know if you've seen.
Yeah, I saw it.
That's a weird, creepy movie. He made Prisoners.
He made another one that was kind of popular. I forget the name of it.
Arrival.
Yeah, the Arrival. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe little bits of Arrival in it. But the thing is, the movie comes from the original movie Blade Runner, which had in turn inspired so many other films to be made and really created a statement. Like the Road. We were talking about the Road Warrior earlier.
Yeah.
The Road Warrior was enormously influential in that particular subsection of the science fiction genre. The apocalyptic wasteland movie. I mean, look at any Albert Pyun movie, and it's kind of a knockoff of Road Warrior.
I will gladly look at any Albert Pyun movie.
Yeah. But Ridley Scott back then was such a perfectionist and a pain in the ass to work with. His work was amazing. He went Alien, Blade Runner, Legend. I mean, that kind of stuff. That's a trinity. That's a trilogy of itself.
And Blade Runner and Legend, not the biggest hits.
No, they're not.
I do wonder how he even continued to work. If he makes one hit movie in 1970, he makes Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Then he makes a couple of huge flops. Then what does he do? Nothing. Doesn't he really kind of? I don't think he makes any movie between Legend and say like Thumb and Louise. Am I incorrect? Black Rain. He makes Black Rain. Another.
I mean,
flop.
Black Rain. Someone to Watch Over Me.
Someone to Watch Over. So and I would say Someone to Watch Over Me. Not necessarily a flop. Kind of a small movie. So it
was a smaller movie, but it got good reviews. I remember Ebert liking it.
I didn't make a ton of money, so.
Black Rain was a big hit.
Was it?
For the time, yeah.
Maybe not in the U.S. Maybe everywhere else. Probably in Japan.
I'm doing a quick check of his filmography here, just so I can get it. That's not okay. It's got to be a separate.
Regardless of
okay. Thelma and Louise, big hit.
Well,
he was able to use the clout he had gotten, the newfound respect from Thelma and Louise.
Not a huge hit, not a massive hit. It had more of a cultural impact than an actual box office.
To get not only 1492 made, which was also a flop.
Yeah, another
but
flop.
But also to get people interested in the director's cut of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And then after that, he did White Squall, not a big hit. G.I. Jane was kind of a hit.
Yeah,
Gladiator, of course, was an enormous hit.
Gladiator was his movie. It took him that long.
Hannibal was a big hit,
Hannibal was a big hit. But
Black Hawk Down, big hit.
Yeah. I would say that's his best period. Is that sort of? Those it
might be. I did enjoy Matchstick Men. I don't know if it was a big hit or not.
That's a good movie. There was this one movie he did. It was kind of a smaller movie where it was Russell Crowe and he inherited a house. I can't remember the name of it, but.
Was it
like A Summer or something, or
A Good Year?
A Good Year, yeah, I think I was thinking.
And after that, I did enjoy his Alien movies. I did enjoy Prometheus and Alien Covenant because I like the Alien movies. I like that he went back to it too. I mean, like he's another guy who's exploring his past, and he was actually going to set himself up to direct Blade Runner 2049. I guess he decided not to in favor of doing the Alien movies.
Good, because he probably wouldn't have done as good a job, I don't think.
No, it's not really. But I do know that when Disney took over Fox, their first directive was to scrap any further Alien movies because they're just not making money.
They're not making money. It's a good idea. You know, sit on it for a while. Do like a Planet of the Apes.
But they're better than that shit, that Alien versus Predator crap, which I thought was just ugh.
It lowered the brand. Although they're doing another Predator movie.
But you know, I mean, he was and continues to remain one of my favorite directors for that, for all the stuff that he did that was good.
You know what you're doing? You're doing a John Carpenter where he has like 3 or 4 really good movies, and then the rest of them are like, meh.
Carpenter,
Okay, we got Halloween, we got The Thing,
we got Escape from New York,
you got
Starman, you got Christine, you got They Live, you got Prince of Darkness, which I love. Big Trouble in Little China is a guilty pleasure of mine. I enjoy.
All right, you might be winning me over on this, but he's inconsistent. I'll put it this way: much like Carpenter, he is inconsistent.
The Fog, you know, and even the stuff he produced. He produced a couple of really good movies.
Part of the problem with Carpenter is they don't necessarily let him make the weird movies.
I always made a point to see a John Carpenter movie when it came in the theater. Like, as a matter of fact, 2 days before 9/11, me and Browen went to see Ghosts of Mars. Even though, Assault on Precinct 13, for God's sake, that's an awesome movie. Well, Ghosts of Mars is kind of like a retread of Assault on Precinct 13, but it takes place on Mars. But after that, 9/11, of course, and that makes you forget. Anyway, we're getting off track. So Blade Runner 2049. Like I said, I really did enjoy it. I was impressed. I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. And what's more, it resonates with me. Even I saw it on Monday, rewatched it on Tuesday night by myself with the lights turned down, with me propped in front of the TV to make it as theater-like as possible. I even had some popcorn going there. And it's a great movie to just get lost in. And it's sad that movies aren't being made like that anymore. That you can't just like take in an image. I mean, I know very little about the director, but he's an artist. He's definitely an artist, and he's very much in that kind of early Ridley Scott mold. He does channel him quite a bit.
I heard that his next project is going to be another remake of Dune.
If they're given the appropriate budget, and he is given the kind of artistic freedom that he had with Blade Runner 2049, it could be very good.
I just have the sense that if he does it, it's going to be more like that Jodorowsky Dune that never got made, which could be awesome, but I don't know.
It could be. Jodorowsky has some very weird ideas about men and women.
Completely warp the ending and change stuff, and yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up. What's the name of this podcast again?
David and Gene and Roger, a Siskel and Ebert podcast.
All right. Have a good night. And
good night. Oh, sorry.
And you know, make it a better one, as the guy says in Blade Runner.
Yeah, please make it a better one. We need help, please.